In YouTube, Jason here. Magda's getting Facebook queued up over here as well. We'll get a few of you on here and we will get ready to rock and roll. Welcome to Inflight Coffee. Honestly, I don't totally know what episode it is. It is a special Safer Pilot Challenge edition. This is what we're working on here today. Welcome into the house. A rainy day. Who else has that? Is it a cold front or whatever that? It's a big old band from Ohio all the way down to Key West, it looks like, coming on across. Who's dealing with some of that right now? I know in Ohio, I saw some snow and some other things working their way through. So welcome into Inflight Coffee. So thankful, so blessed you are here as well, taking time on, for some of you, a rainy Saturday. For us it is, at least. For others, just so thankful to have you all out there. Who is watching? And not only who is watching on YouTube or on Facebook, who is 6 for 6 in the 31-day Safer Pilot Challenge? That is what I want to see here as well. Who is 6 for 6? Check in the comments. Magda's got the comments here for me. There's Eric Pittman. There's Hunter. There's Telvin. Good to see you. John Vargas on Facebook. Great to see you all as well. By the way, sorry Facebook, I don't have the good microphone. So if you're like Eric Pittman and you have to have perfect audio, head over to YouTube to watch it. The good audio is over on, from the lavalier mic, is over on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, I got YouTube comments over here as well. Ed Kessler's over there. He's 6 for 6. William Schmidt's over there. He is 6 for 6. Cody in Colorado, also 6 for 6. So great to see so many of you on here. Sorry, Magda, I put your computer right in the shot there as well. But that's all good enough. Good enough. YouTube made us go vertical. I don't know why it makes us go vertical live, but that is what it is. Welcome to the house. We do need the fireplace again today. It's another bit of a chilly day, but so thankful that you all are tuning in here today. You know, we have kicked off the 31-day Safer Pilot Challenge, as those of you checking in on Facebook, on YouTube, are chiming in with. You are 6 for 6. If you have no clue what we're talking about, well, you've got 6 great videos to go catch up on, because every day this month we're releasing one great piece of content. Today we actually left the airplane, if you've done your homework already today and you're 6 for 6, and talked about Southwest 1248, the runway overrun incident. And I haven't read all your comments just yet. I'll go back in there. But not using the thrust reversers, landing with a tailwind, landed in weather they probably shouldn't have landed in. Like, you can see how things compound. And can you also see how the Safer Pilot Challenge, like, these aren't just like a bunch of hodgepodge videos that we just shotgun approach kind of out there, how it's all very purposeful. Right now, everything's kind of focused around the runway environment, what's happening in those instances. So that's really what we've been focusing on so far with the 31-day Safer Pilot Challenge. We'll be back in the airplane again tomorrow on Sunday, so watching for that as well. But welcome in. It's actually in-flight tea today. Is Pete watching? Pete, your Christmas present finally made it. Thank you, my friend. He got me a Talk to Me Goose coffee mug, of which I'm drinking tea out of, throat coat tea. So I had the entire island of Mallorca come stay at the house. And with that, they brought COVID, or somebody brought COVID. So from literally like the 24th, Christmas Eve, until about the 3rd, we were all out. I still have a little bit of a cough, but we're much better. So I'm still not craving coffee, so sticking with tea today. Thank you for the mug, Pete. Talk to me, Goose. It says, poor Goose. I love that shirt. Eric Pittman probably has the shirt. You know, if I were flying, Goose would still be alive. I'm pretty sure Eric Pittman. Craig Ziegler definitely has that shirt too. I just know a few people by their personalities who would have that shirt. That's a compliment, by the way. Let's dive into our content here together. Before I dive into the content, I want to speak something over each and every one of you out there. Something I was learning myself this morning and just hearing. And if you choose to receive this word, and you do have to choose to receive it and plant it as a seed, right? Because words are seeds. You're going to continue to set yourself up for success. And that word is 2024 is your year for more. Okay, it sounds like a cute little rhyme, but you can take it as a cute little rhyme, or if you choose to let that be prophetic in your life and choose to actually believe it, it's not only more for your flight training, it's more for your family, it's more for your finances, your business, whatever you may be doing. This is the time we're setting our resolutions. This is the time we are setting goals. And if you have not been setting goals in your personal life, in your flying life, and everything, that's something maybe we can address down the road here as well. But really, the Safer Pilot Challenge is geared to be one of those goals for you all. If 2024 is your year of more, whether that's more flying, more abundance, more financial freedom, whatever more time with family, more health, right? You get to define more. You get to define what richness looks like in your life. Richness isn't always what's in a bank account. Richness, it could be in your health, with your grandkids, with your children, having children, getting married, whatever that may be. You get to define that. But I certainly know aviation is a big part of that, and I hope we get to play a small part in your big success in your 2024, your year of more, as far as that goes. So as we've been diving into the Safer Pilot Challenge, you've noticed, especially as we've been talking about these engine failures on takeoff, who saw yesterday, I mean, if you're 6 for 6, obviously you did see it, engine failure on takeoff with runway remain. Show of hands, type in me in the chat. Who has ever actually practiced that? I mean, you get out on the runway like we did on day 5, you rotate, you get to 50 to 100 feet, you pull that power back to idle, you bring it on in and land it. Who, just by type in me in the chat, who has ever actually done that? An engine failure on takeoff with runway remaining. Now, those of you that have done that, you know how quickly you had to get that nose down. I meant what I said in that video where it kind of felt like, look at all the me's coming in, I love that. Hey Gabe, good to see you on Facebook. Hey Brad, good to see you. I meant what I said, like my bottom kind of almost left the seat a little bit. You nose that thing over so abruptly, so quickly, because you have to get that thing flying. One thing I didn't get to share in that video, because it all just happened so quickly, before I almost even got that throttle back to idle, that stall warning horn was just about ready to come on. I mean, it sure seemed that way. It was throttle back, and in reality, what I should have done is gone throttle back and give it a 1, 2, 3 for this startle effect. Think back to you guys remember the movie Sully. In the movie Sully, the NTSB was trying to disprove that Sully made the wrong decision landing in the Hudson, that he could have made it to LaGuardia, that he could have made it to Teterboro. And they had simulator after simulator showing they could make it. And then Tom Hanks, I don't know if Sully said this in real life, but Tom Hanks sure did a great job of it, and it's true, where he said, these simulations aren't real. He said, these pilots are not acting like pilots. They're just making a right turn and go to LaGuardia like they're picking up the milk. Remember when they said that in Sully? What a great, great line in that movie. Those pilots knew the emergency was coming. They knew the type of emergency. They knew the exact turn to LaGuardia, the exact turn to Teterboro. We don't have that luxury. You learn later, too, those same simulator pilots, it took 18 times, even with that information, 18 times to make the one successful landing that the NTSB showed. Again, maybe Sully is a movie you need to watch today, clearly. If not, great, great movie, great scene from that movie. You don't know when an engine failure is coming, especially something like an engine failure on takeoff. This is why getting that airplane flying again has to be priority number 1. There's that startle effect, 2-3 seconds of what just happened. I need to nose that thing forward. I need to get that airplane flying again. And the next thing you know, I went from stall warning horn almost on to now this is a no flap landing, and I've got a little bit of float factor, right? This 172 landed no flaps. She likes to float. And that's going to continue on from there. So it's really 2 in 1. Now, on that vein of no flap landings, let's go all the way back to day 1. Day 1 was landing in gusty conditions. And I shared a lot. I talked about this with our online ground school members on the webinar. And if you're not a member, I hope you'll become one. M0atrial.com. Would love to have you on the webinar this Tuesday. Who here, again, by typing in me in the chat, and there'll probably be some more me's to this one, who has ever done a no flap landing? No flap landing. It sounds so simple. It sounds so easy. But where are my Cirrus pilots at? They will tell you that a no flap landing is challenging in a slippery plane like a Cirrus. You know, a Cirrus is challenging in its flap configurations because in a Cirrus I have no flaps, I have 50% of flaps, and I have 100% of flaps, and that's it. I don't have all the same options I have in 2-3 Mike Zulu where I can like baby in a degree at a time on my Lima model for flaps, all the way to 40 degrees, by the way. It's challenging. Look at all these me's that came in here. Yeah, a no flap landing. It's challenging. But you know, think of it this way. When are the times you may need to do a no flap landing? Okay, obviously in training, check. What if you had, Dexter, what if you were flying, or Chase over on Facebook, or Leroy on Facebook, what if you were flying and you have an alternator failure and you lose everything electrical? You're gonna, unless you're flying a Cherokee 140 or something with manual flaps, you're probably gonna have a no flap landing. You see how a little thing like an electrical failure compounds into a greater issue. Like now, it's not only I have a communications issue, I'm also doing a no flap landing. Now Andre, Jessica over on YouTube, let's go add night to the equation. Now I've had an alternator failure at night. My battery has died. I now am making a no flap landing. By the way, a no landing light landing. When's the last time you did a no landing light landing on purpose? And by the way, I can't communicate the state of my emergency unless I have a handheld radio. By the way, how am I going to turn the lights on at the pilot-controlled airport? Do you see how a seemingly small thing, based on the conditions in the environment, can compound to become a serious issue? An alternator failure is by no means an emergency yet. It depends all on the circumstances. Obviously, if I'm in IFR conditions and there's other reasons I would declare an emergency with that. But these are the things you need to think about. You see, in day one, you were just thinking no flap or less flaps, 10 degrees of flap landing in gusty conditions. But it goes beyond just gusty conditions. That's when you're probably most likely to use it. You're more likely to encounter gusty conditions than you are to an alternator failure. But if you spend any amount of time in aviation, I'm not speaking this, again, prophetically over anybody this time, but an alternator failure is going to happen. You're going to see one later on in the Safer Pilot Challenge. Unscripted, just kind of happened to me. Who, again, by typing me in the chat, who's ever had a real deal alternator failure? Again, I've had them in the Cirrus. It's a relatively non-event because I have 2 alternators. 2-3 Mike Zulu, it's a different deal because I got 1 alternator, 1 battery. I mean, I do have backup batteries for the Dynon, some other things, but it just adds to it. Hey, Dave, good to see you out there. I remember, Dave, you shared with us a webinar, many webinars ago about your alternator failure. These things can and will happen to you. A vacuum system failure is another thing that's along those same lines. Now, I know many of us are leaving our vacuum systems for AHARs and everything else, but it's just something else to really keep in mind because you don't know what kind of aircraft you're going to be flying. I saw a funny meme. Magda showed it to me. I can't remember where. It said something to the effect of student pilot flight training and had the G1000 and the iPad and everything else. And then beneath it said first pilot job. And it was like an old crusty King Air from 1972 that had all original round dial instruments. I thought it was kind of humorous because it's very, very accurate. We're doing all our flight training, these super modern aircraft, and most of y'all, your first flying job is not going to be in that awesome of avionics suite. Some of you are very blessed, but not everybody gets such a luxury. So you just have to keep that in mind. By the way, YouTube, I saw username TS, had an alternator failure last Saturday. Again, an alternator failure can be a non-event or it could become an event. It depends all on the circumstances in which you're dealt that hand. Kind of like playing poker in a way, all right? So also username on YouTube, AB, I had an alternator failure a few weeks ago. Thankfully, it happened during the run-up. If I'm gonna have an alternator failure, the run-up is a great place to have an alternator failure. I just turn my booty around and come right on back. I value those types of alternator failures. I had a vacuum pump failure that way during run-up. It just sheared off, made a noise. I thought, I'm glad I figured this out here. But that leads to that point of that no flap landing. Now, another point, I mentioned this on the Ground School member-only webinar I did on this Tuesday with our members. So this will be for Dave and some others, Mark out there. This will be redundant, and Holly and others. And I'm sorry if the audio is not great on Facebook. Head over to YouTube. I only have one microphone. It's rainy outside and cold, and we didn't feel like going to the studio today. So you're on Jason's iPhone and Magda's iPhone, but only one has I only have one good microphone at the house. So if you are an audio nut and this echo on Facebook's bugging you, head over to YouTube. It's vertical video, sorry. I don't know why they made us do that, but the audio is better over there. I wanted to talk, though, with you about the definition of a gust and what a gust actually looks like. Because you saw that flight on day one of the Safer Pilot Challenge going into Page Field. What was it? Gusting to 2-4. Well, what is the definition of a gust? Well, remember, a gust, it's not a peak wind. Peak wind is different. A gust means an increase in velocity up to, I want to say the FAA defines it as 8 seconds. Dave G, you looked it up last time. Maybe someone can look it up for me. I want to say it's 8 seconds. You ready for this? Followed by a lull. Lull, L-U-L-L, a decrease. So the winds, when you hear winds 020 at 12, so 020 at 12, gust 18. That does not mean the winds are 12 knots, 12 knots, 12 knots, 18 knots, back to 12 knots, 12 knots, 12 knots, 18 knots. It could be steady at 12, 18 gust, go down to 4, or go down to nothing. It is a true lull. And let me tell you, what gets people hurt on landings, if you look at the NTSB reports, it's not the gust, because you prepare for the gust. You come in no flaps, you add some power, you're all configured for this. You've got the crab angle or the one wing low side slip technique. Everything's great. It's the lull that gets you. Because you overcorrect for the 18 when it hits you for 8 seconds or whatever that is. And then you get that lull. But you're corrected for 18 knots. You've got power in for 18 knots. You've got the crab angle in for 18 knots, and then it goes away. It's the lull in a gust that can get you in trouble. So that's what you have to be mindful of when you see, we spend so much time looking at the gusting velocity, and that's very true. Gusting to 2-4 is a lot, and I'd argue 90% of the people on here should not be flying on a day when it says gusting to 2-4, because it goes from 2-4 to 8 in a lull. And that's where you can get yourself in trouble with the side loading, landing off center line, everything else. It's not the gust, it's when it dies down for that second that's going to get you. So that's what you need to focus on when you're thinking about and looking at something like a gust factor. All right, now the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I was so proud of so many of you on this video, I want to say it was day 3, maybe it was day 4, whichever one was the it was day 3, the real soft field landing. Again, by typing in me in the chat, who has ever done a real soft field landing? I mean, purposefully. You've landed on grass, legally and purposefully, you've landed on grass before. You know, I'm such an advocate of this, and I hope it came across in the video. Obviously, in the video we showed protect the nose, minimize braking, don't use carb heat. We shared all this stuff to get you ACS ready for a check ride. And that is great, and One of my many goals is, yes, you're going to pass your written test. Yes, you're going to pass your check ride by using the M0A online ground school. But you see, my real vision for that video was, if you were to have a real deal engine failure, there is a very high probability. In fact, I've got a video coming out, I don't know what day it is, but it's a few days away, on fields versus water versus trees versus roads, kind of showing all these alternative landing sites. I won't spoil it, but there is a very high probability, a very high likelihood that if you were to have an engine failure, you're landed in some farmer's field, especially in Florida. That's very, very likely, or the Everglades or something like that, but it's going to be an off-airport landing into some field. And you see, this is where I need you to practice, because simulating landing on the pavement, protect the nose, don't use carb heat, pull it back, like don't hit the tail though. It's so different than when you really land on the grass and it's bumpy and it slows you down more abruptly than you need to, and you really truly have to protect that nose wheel and you can't really brake or anything like that to save the airplane. Obviously, in an emergency situation, you do whatever you have to do. Protecting the nose would be my last concern if I was landed in some farmer's field. It's to get this thing down and stopped across the greatest distance that I have available to use to break inertia. But that was really the focus of that video, is making a true soft field. Now, I read every comment, by the way. There's been about 500 comments on every video. I'm so impressed by each and every one of you. 600 on some videos. Amazing. You all are just playing full out. Thank you for that. And thank you for being here on a Saturday, by the way. Thank you for playing full out. But I saw the comment come up over and over again, and maybe you were one of those that left one of these comments. Hey, Jason, I would love to, but my flight school won't allow me to. They say insurance. My insurance won't allow me to. Can I share something with you? I mean, you need to be respectful of the flight school's rules. It could be an in-house rule. It could truly be insurance. But let me tell you, back in the olden days, grass was the only option. Go do general aviation in Europe. Grass is the only option. Magda's brother came over here for Christmas, and we took him over to Rex Air to do a flight. It was one of his first times. He's a pilot, their version of a light sport pilot over in Spain, in Mallorca. It was one of his first times ever landing on pavement, as crazy as that sounds. And he's probably out there watching on YouTube or Facebook now. It was one of his first times, because all the general aviation airports there are grass. And he was complimenting how nice it was and how different it was to land on pavement. I thought, what a weird thing. And here we're the exact opposite. There are public grass strips out there. There are airports like Naples that have grass strips available to you. And the Naples one, is, as you saw in the video, was really like golf course ready. It was really well done. X-Ray 60, the Williston Airport has one. Maybe you all can start putting in the chat the state, city, and the airport identifier of some grass strips that you know of that are public, or airports that have grass strips. Because people say, well, all the grass strips I know of, they're private, and I can't get in there, they're flying communities. That's not all true. Maybe let's start to populate the chat right now, and you can kind of watch for your area or some future $100 hamburgers, whatever that may be. I'll contribute to that APF and X-Ray 60. Great grass strips that are public use airports that you can go in and use. So let's start to put some of those in the chat, and not just the identifier, but the geographical area for people too, so they can kind of know and start to screenshot some of these, start to write some of these down, because you're going to have an opportunity. Maybe your flight school says no, and that may be their rule or regulation, whatever. We're not going to debate that today. I find that hard to believe, but and again, with my involvement with what I saw Keith was on here earlier, down at Rex Air. Keith will let you land the RV-12s on and off the grass. It's better for the tires and better for the brakes, he'll tell you, right? It's just better for the airplane overall. There's many flight school owners that say, yeah, if you got the grass, please use it. An aircraft like an RV-12 is meant to be flown off the grass like that. 172s were flown off the grass. 2-3 Mike Zulu was probably launched off the grass in 1972 when she was first created. So while you may not have the opportunity, eventually you'll get that opportunity, flying with a buddy or something like that, and it's a different ball game. It's nothing to be worried about, but it's just a different ball game. So thank you for putting those in the chat. I think that's going to help everybody moving forward with that. So good. All right, last thing I want to talk about, then we'll open it up for questions here. Again, Pete, if you're watching, thank you for the mug and Magda's mug as well. We did the video on the short field takeoff and landing via the alligator. Was I a little too excited when I saw the alligator? I'm still like a little kid, a big little kid trapped in a big kid's body. Like Gavin does all the time too. Daddy, there's a squirrel outside. Like real kind of stuff. He's very passionate about that, and I guess I'm the same. It was pretty cool to see an alligator taking off. And for those of you, I did let the FBO know afterwards, and they just were like, he's been there all day. It's no big deal. I'm like, there's just an alligator next to your runway, and you're not going to go shoo him away. No, he's just been there all day. We're not going to bug him. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, I was pretty excited. I was pretty excited to see the alligator. But beyond that, I want to share something, not that I didn't remember to share in the video, but something that it's so hard in 7 or 8 minutes to get all these points across, like a lap and a pattern in that case. And that's with a short field landing. You see, at a place like Marco Island, it's tough to make a real short field landing because the actual FAA definition of a short field landing is clearing an obstacle and then hitting a point. At a place like Marco Island, where you saw I did that video, I could just drag it on in all I want. As long as that alligator stays low, there's no problem. That's not a real short field landing. That's actually, by definition, what's called a spot landing, where you drag it in like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing a real check ride ready short field or a real world short field landing, a short field isn't always by definition, it's less than 3,000 feet, so it's a short field for my aircraft. No, you could have a 5,000 foot long runway, but if there's a tree right here, the effective use of that runway is only from here to here, like my sleeve. You don't get to use this part of the runway because there's a tree right here, because you have to come over it. So you may have a 5,000 foot long runway, but if you get an obstacle presented there, well, you've shortened what's called the effective distance of that runway. So that's what an obstacle really does. That's why we simulate this fictitious 50-foot obstacle, but many of you don't get to actually make an approach over a real deal 50-foot obstacle, so that adds to it. Another thing I didn't get to mention, because on that approach I was just making it a touch and go, is when you land, you have to do what's called aerodynamic braking. What is aerodynamic braking? Aerodynamic braking is getting as much weight back on those main wheels as possible. Meaning, when I touch down, I'm pulling back on that yoke. Why do I pull back on that yoke? It puts weight over the center of the aircraft, off the front, and onto the mains. You shift that weight onto the mains because where are my brakes located? My brakes are located on my mains. So when I can shift more weight onto the mains, it makes my brakes more effective. Now, another way to do this, and not every flight school, not every flight instructor is crazy about this, is to bring up the flaps. I personally do this. Not every check ride examiner or CFI or flight school likes this, so ask first. Why don't they like you to bring up flaps on the roll? Because in a real short field environment, you would go aerodynamic braking, flaps up. By bringing the flaps up, again, you're taking weight off the wings and you're shifting it back to the mains, thus making your brakes more effective. Why are some flight schools not crazy about this idea? Well, there have been some NTSB reports in retractable gear aircraft where people reach over to do aerodynamic braking and they grab the gear switch. Now that is a very fast way to slow yourself down. There's no way, bad joke intended. But it's also a quick call to the insurance company after that as well. So I do not do aerodynamic braking in retractable gear aircraft like that, but if I'm in the Cirrus or if I'm in 23 Mike Zulu, I will, and if I need to, I will do aerodynamic braking just to help slow myself down a little bit more. A lot of schools don't even practice this in their 172s or in their Cirruses or Diamonds or Pipers, whatever they're flying. They don't even practice it because they don't want to have what's called a negative transference, meaning one day you're going to step into a retractable gear aircraft, and we don't want you to do the same thing you did in 23 Mike Zulu to go do it in that King Air, because it's not going to have a good effect on you. Does that make sense for everybody? So a lot of schools don't even teach that just from a primacy standpoint. They don't want you to learn that. So it's totally up to you. If you believe you can handle the mental brain marathon of, okay, I'm in 23 Mike Zulu, I can bring up the flaps, by all means do it. If not, you're only burning up a few extra 100 feet. You know, it's not that big of a deal. But I just need you to know, if you have a real deal short field, that is something you're going to want to be practicing, something you're going to want to be doing. So I hope you've been loving the 6 days so far of the 31-day Safer Pilot Challenge. I want to open it up quickly here for your questions, your comments. This is your time to ask them here as well. I'm here to serve you all on this beautiful Saturday. Even though tomorrow's Sunday, a video is still going to go out. It's going to be back in the airplane, so looking forward to that. Start to type in some questions, type in some comments on YouTube, on Facebook. I got the chats up here in front of me. I'm more than happy to start answering some of those here now. Jennifer Gates, who flies a beautiful 182 RG, said, luckily the gear handle and flap handles are on the opposite side of the cockpit in the airplane. I like that. So that makes it easier. I didn't realize that. I've flown a 182 RG, Jennifer. And you're right, the gear handle is right on the pilot side, whereas the flap handle is where it is typically in 172s, way over on the co-pilot side, isn't it? I do remember that now. So that makes it a little bit easier. You're reaching way over to get the flaps, as opposed to the gears kind of right in front of you. That does, it does make it nice as well. Yep.
Where can they find
Magda's asking, some people miss some days. No problem on missing some days. We can always catch up. You're watching this on YouTube or Facebook now. Just go to our main channel on YouTube or Facebook. I've made a 2024 Safer Pilot Challenge playlist. You can find the missing days there on Facebook. Just kind of scroll down. You'll each one's titled Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. They're in opposite order, ascending order, descending order, sorry. Same thing on YouTube. Just look at our recent videos. You can find those there. They all have the very specific Safer Pilot Challenge thumbnails in there as well. So, all right, let's find some that. Yeah, Joe, I didn't get day 5 on the website. It is up now though. It was on YouTube and Facebook. I had a scheduling issue getting it up on the website. Bradley asked a question. I asked a question earlier about your approach to gusty landings. Does it matter if it's a tight delta between the reported wind and the gust factor? That's certainly going to come into my account, meaning that lull, like you said, Bradley, may not be as strong as you think. And then the opposite of that is also true, Brad. If it's 020 at 8, gust 22, that's pretty significant for me. That's a big delta and tells you there's going to be a lot of those lulls. Even going back to 8 is a lull in there as well, so keep that in mind. Dr. Bill said, how many aviation ornaments are on our Christmas tree? A lot, Ella. What do you think? Who still has their Christmas tree up? Am I the only crazy person on January 6th? We were sick for so long, but we just haven't had the energy or desire. It's just pretty. We like the Christmas tree up. Ella's counting. Ella's sitting here on the couch. She's counting. She will report back how many aviation ornaments are on the tree. It could be a good competition there as well. All right. Let's see. Okay, many still have their Christmas tree up. I don't feel so bad now. That's good. We've taken the outside decorations down, so we're not like those neighbors. But inside, we still got the tree up, you know? It's nice. Ella's still over there counting. You got a report yet, Ella?
I see 2.
Only 2. There's way more than 2. I see 2 right here. 1, 2. All our pictures. Yeah, I bet there's quite a few. All right, let's look at some more here. Jennifer said, what are your thoughts on the Tokyo accident? Wow. Obviously, I haven't dug into it a ton. You know what it reminds me of, Jennifer? I know you've seen it because I've done it a million times. Jennifer's been a member for many, many years. Remember how I do that Providence accident, United 1448 at Providence, where they got lost at Providence? It reminds me of that, just being on the ground in the wrong place at the wrong time is what it reminds me of. Yes, Ella?
5.
She says just 5.
I see 5.
She sees 5. Okay, Gavin and Ella say 5. We need to work on that, clearly. But maybe we'll work on taking that down as well. All right, Hunter, great question. Emergency at night, where are you going? Hunter, you are going to the best lit area you can. You're going to the known. I have heard this advice, and unfortunately this advice still circulates. I was told this advice, and I thought, that just doesn't sound right. Someone said, if you had, now this is incorrect, so don't grab this clip and just go misquote all over the internet, please. I'm purposely saying what I believe is incorrect. I've heard people say, if you have an engine failure at night, go to the darkest spot. I thought, well, the darkest spot could be a field, but it could also be a lake. It could also be trees. It could be the side of a mountain. It could be like, that's terrible advice. You go to the known. And you know what? The known may be a road. The known may be a really big parking lot. An engine failure at night is a scary situation you do not want to find yourself in. This is why, Hunter, and you've heard me say this before, especially Hunter's a great CFI, by the way, working with students, especially working with students on those long night cross countries, Hunter, very, very rarely do we go airport A to airport B. A lot of times we kind of bounce around and go city to city, lights to lights, especially where you live, Hunter. You can get some remote parts of Pennsylvania. I try to stay over the population for the most part. And that may not mean flying a perfectly straight line. It's just something else to keep in mind with that. So great question and comment on that one. Let's find some more here. Steve said there's the old aviation adage, turn on your landing lights. If you don't like what you see, turn them off. I mean, it's true. Hold on, stop the presses. Eric Pittman, Jason, I wanted to tell you I passed my check ride. I'm finally a certificated private pilot starting 2024, right? If you all know Eric Pittman, this has been a journey. I wouldn't call it a battle, Eric. Let's just call it a journey. Who all has been on that journey before, where it's like losing instructors, losing airplanes, changing flight schools, got a promotion at work and now they're working you like crazy, or whatever that may be? Like, who has walked that walk in aviation between new instructors, new airplanes, new flight schools, people? Who was it, Magda, that called their instructor the pattern burning wallet drainer? Who was that? Michael J. McMurray? Who said that? Somebody we know said that. They were talking about their instructor. They said, yeah, my instructor was a pattern burning wallet drainer. I said, tell me how you really feel. I want to say that was Michael McMurray. Who said that? Eric Pittman, who said that? You were on that webinar. I remember when someone said that. We were talking about making a shirt about it, a pattern burning wallet drainer. Who's ever had a pattern burning wallet drainer flight instructor? Unfortunately, those exist. Those exist sometimes. So, but yeah, it happens. It happens sometimes. All right, Shaksham said, why not use flaps when turning? Magda, could I have 23 Mike Zulu, please? It's here, right? She is running to get 23 Mike Zulu. I will show you why I like to avoid flaps in a turn. Gavin, do you want to show everybody your airplane? Gavin wants to show you guys his airplane. Well, come over here and show it to him. Don't just hand it to me. What is your airplane missing, Gavin? The tail. It is definitely missing the tail. It's also missing 2 engines. What happened to the engines? What happened to the tail?
The engines fell off.
The engines fell off. Yeah, double engine failure. Call you Sully. The tail failure, I don't know how to help you on that one. That's gonna be a tough one. My beautiful assistant, Gavin, thank you. Okay, why do I teach no flaps? Oh, my antenna is crooked. If you ever buy a model, don't pay extra for the antennas. It's not worth it. They're too fragile. Think about it this way. All right, what is happening in a turn? I've got a vertical component of lift and I've got a horizontal component of lift. Yet together they add up to what's called my total lift. When I enter into a turn, I decrease my vertical component of lift because I only have so much lift. Lift is like a bank account. And the lift that I lost from my vertical component of lift, I give to a horizontal component of lift. That's what pulls me through the turn. This is why, if you've ever seen my trim technique in steep turns, that is why it works, because it is compensating for the loss in the vertical component of lift, because the horizontal component of lift steals it. If you've ever been in a turn and all of a sudden saw yourself losing altitude, it's simply because you traded vertical component of lift for horizontal component of lift. So, that being said, why that occurs is because in a turn, well, one wing is producing more lift, vertical and horizontal, than the other, right? One of the wing is doing more vertical lifting as another one's doing more horizontal lifting. So if I'm in a turn and one wing is producing more lift than the other, if I add drag to the equation, one wing will also now be producing more drag than the other. Not life or death, but just something I need to understand. The last factor is, in a turn, where does my nose in a standard, not a pusher aircraft where the prop's behind you, in a standard propeller configuration, if I add flaps, where does my nose have a tendency to want to go? Up, right? So I'm in a turn, one wing's producing more lift than the other. I add flaps, now one wing's producing more drag than the other, and flaps have a tendency to make my nose come up. If you're not aware of all those things, what ingredients did you all just put into motion? Man, you put the perfect ingredients for a stall spin scenario. And with flaps, if you're adding flaps in, chances are you're very close to the ground. So one wing's producing more lift than the other, now another one's producing more drag than the other, and the nose wants to come up. That's all, and I'm low. That's all the ingredients I need for a stall spin. So I teach just don't do it. Can it be done? Absolutely, if you know what you're doing. If you're in a turn and you push the nose forward and add flaps in, you will live a very long life in aviation. You will not have a problem. But you have to remember, through the power of the internet, we reach 1-hour pilots and 10,000-hour pilots on the same video. In fact, in this Safer Pilot Challenge, I know airline captains and military pilots that most of us would want to be our mentors are doing the Safer Pilot Challenge, along with some of you who just fly the flight simulator right now and aspire to be a pilot one day. So we have a lot of reach, and I have to be respectful with that reach and give it advice that says, listen, unless you know what you're doing, don't do this. I still, to this day, do not add flaps in a turn. With Magda and Coach Ray, who edits all these videos, as my witness, he will tell you he probably doesn't have a single clip that he's ever caught me adding flaps in a turn, because it's just too dangerous. It'd be that one time you forget and the nose sneaks up on you. So that is why I don't teach flaps in a turn. Does that make sense? By the way, Jason Lewis, next flight's gonna hit 500 hours. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I would just rather, like Victoria said, I would just rather teach the safest way to do it. You can add flaps in a turn, and you'll live a long life as long as you push forward and keep that nose coming down. But why give a 10-hour student pilot one more thing to focus on? They're just trying to make the right radio calls on their first solo. They're trying to figure out where they fit in the pattern. Don't give them one extra thing to do. That's my viewpoint on that. Marilyn said, I think you're literally the only person who teaches that. Every other CFI just does it. And again, that's fine. You can get away with that. But when you hear it explained how I explained it, you kind of go, that really kind of makes sense. And I can find the NTSB reports to back it up as well. This isn't just like some random Jason theory. We've got the data to back that up too. So you do what you want with it. Either is going to be a great option. There's just, you got to know what you're doing with it all. Let's see if there's anything else happening out there on YouTube or Facebook as well. Allah, great to see you. And congratulations, he's going to be a new dad in 2024. I love it. Eric Pittman also bought a Cessna 150. My goodness, I love it. I love that. Let's see here. Alexis said, my fiance started building interest in learning to fly, more than just being a passenger. She showed some tremendous interest and wanted to know more. And last week, we've been seeing your YouTube videos. I love that. Alexis, go grab the private pilot blueprint if you don't have it already. That'd be super, super great, just to get them going and getting learning. He already has a great mentor in you, though. So I think that is phenomenal. So good. Marilyn, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, no rushing base or final turn or anything like that. So good. So listen, guys, it is a rainy Saturday here, but we're going to enjoy maybe a day inside. What do you want to do today, Ella? What do you want to do?
Pickleball.
She wants to play pickleball today. And that's the new Florida sport, pickleball. I think it's too rainy for pickleball unless we can play in the garage. We'll have to see how that goes. But maybe it's a stay inside and read book kind of day. How about that? Or play charades or something. We'll find something to do. We'll watch some movies or something. But anyways, let me go back to being a husband and a father and a son-in-law. My in-laws are here as well, and just enjoying everybody else on a rainy weekend. Have a blessed, abundant, outstanding rest of your day. I will see you all tomorrow for day 7 of the 31-day Safer Pilot Challenge. Have a great Saturday, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow. See ya.